Hey guys, in this video, let us see an example of one-to-one relationship using Spring Data-jpa. For this, let us work with the student class. One student can have only one address. So, let us have the next class's address. The relationship between them is one-to-one. That is, one instance of student can have one instance of address. If you talk in terms of Java class, this student class has an instance of address. Now, together with this, let us see what are the instance variables that we can have for student. In case of student, let us have student ID, name, department. In case of department, it will be of type string. Student ID will be of type integer. Name is of type string. Similarly, in case of address, let us have address ID which is of type integer, city and state. Both of them are of type string. So this is in terms of Java class. Now let us see how this will be reflected in terms of the database. In case of this scenario, two tables will be created. One will be the student table and the other one will be the address table. Whatever properties you are having in the student class will be converted into columns in the student table. So you will have student ID, name, department. If you want to give a different name, of course that is also possible. So this is my student table. Now coming to the address table will have address ID, city and state. Now what about the relationship between these two? Both are having one-to-one relationship and you are also having an instance variable as address. So this address object will be converted into an address ID in the student table. So you will have one other column which is the address ID, which is nothing but the foreign key in the student table. This address ID refers to the primary key of this address table. So this is how the relationship works. Because you have added address in student class, the address ID of the address class will come and sit as a foreign key in the student table. Now let us see this as an application. Let me move on to STS. Let us create a new Spring Starter project. File, new, Spring Starter project. We are working with the student application. So let me give the name as Spring Student App -one-to-one. Type is Maven. Java version is 11. Packaging is jar. Language is Java. Change the group ID com.studentapp. Package is com.studentapp. Click next. Now we need to add the dependencies. We are working with data.jpa, so you need to select data.jpa. We are working with MySQL database, so we need MySQL driver. Select that. If you have used the STS tool once, these dependencies will be available on the top. You can see it is frequently used. Change the Spring Boot version. We are going in for a lower version only, 2.7.7, or you can go in for 2.6.12. It is not available here. Once the application is created, you need to go and change in pom.xml. Click finish. The application is getting created. Now the application is ready. First let us create the student class. Select com.studentapp, right click class. The package is model. Class name is student. Click finish. Now let me add the instance variables as discussed. I have added student ID, student name and department. Next it is address. We don't have the address class, we need to create it. Keep the cursor here. Create a new class. Create class address. In the same package, click finish. Here let us add the three instance variables. Address ID, city and state. All the three properties are added. Let me create a default constructor. Let me create a parameterized constructor. In case of a parameterized constructor, I do not want address ID. The reason being I want to auto generate the ID. So we will discuss that. As of now, I am uncommenting address ID and generating the parameterized constructor. Then go to source, generate getter setters. Getter setters for all the three properties. Go to source, generate toString. Now coming back to the student class, just similar to the previous one, here also let us create a default constructor, a parameterized constructor. Here also we are going to auto generate the ID. So let me just uncomment it and click generate. Then go to source, generate getter and setters, select all, click generate. Go to source, generate toString. Now the basic setup is done. Let me save it. Now let me add the appropriate annotations that are from spring-data-jpa. If you want to convert this class into an entity, you need to add the annotation @entity. This entity is from JavaX persistence package. When you add @entity annotation above a class, this class is converted into an entity and also generates a table in the database. The name of the table will be same as that of the class name. If you want to give a different table name, then you need to use @table annotation. We have also done one application to perform CRUD operation using spring-data-jpa. There you will get an understanding of @entity, @table, @id annotation. So I assume that you know all those. To convert the student ID into a primary key, add @id annotation. This is also from JavaX persistence package. Now here we have got student name and department. I want the column name and the property name to be same. So I am not changing anything here. Now let me come to address. In case of address, one instance of student has one instance of address. It means when you create a student, this student will have only one address detail. To emphasize that, Spring Framework has one annotation as @1to1. Add @1to1 annotation above this particular instance variable. If in case of primary key, if you add only @id annotation, then you need to provide the ID manually. But we want to auto generate the ID. So let us add the code to auto generate the ID. You can also refer to the video where I have explained how to auto generate the ID. We need to use two more annotation. One is @generated_value and @sequence_generator. If you are using a combination of both, you can generate your own sequence generator. If you are going to use only generated value, then in the backend database, a sequence will be created with the name hibernate_sequence. Now let us add the code for this. It has got two attributes. One is generator, that is the name of the sequence generator. student_seq, comma, strategy. Generation type .auto. This informs that the sequence will be generated based on the database type. If you give auto, internally it will identify the database and generate the sequence. In case of sequence generator, you have name, which refers to the name of the sequence generator. So let me give it a student_gen. Here also it is student_gen. This is nothing but the name of the sequence generator. Now let us give the name of the sequence. The name of the sequence is student_sequence. So the name of the sequence generator is student_gen and the name of the sequence is student_sequence. And if you want to give an initial value, that also is possible. Initial value is 1. And how it has to be incremented, that is allocation size, that also let me give it as 1. The sequence generator provides the details about the sequence. The name of the sequence generator is student_gen. The name of the sequence is student_sequence. The initial value is 1. The incremental value is also 1. and this generated value is responsible for generating a sequence. It refers to the name that is assigned for the generator attribute. We have given student underscore gen here. So automatically it identifies that the name of the sequence that has to be generated is student underscore sequence. Okay, fine. Now let us move on to the address class. In address class also, let us annotate it with @entity. Annotate this with @id and add sequence generator and generator value. So let me just copy it from here. Go to address class. Let us change the name of the sequence generator. So let this be address underscore gen and the sequence name to be address underscore sequence. And in case of address, let us have the initial value as 10. So that's all for these two classes. Now let us move on to the service layer. Select com.studentapp, right click new interface. The package name is com.studentapp.service. The interface name is iStudentService. Now let us add few methods to perform CRUD operation with the database. Add student, update student, delete student, and few queries also. Let me add them first. So these are the methods to perform CRUD operation with the database. In case of querying the database, I have got get by ID, get all, and get by department, which takes a parameter department. Now let us write the implementation class. Select the service package, right click new class, student service IMPL, which implements iStudentService. Override all the methods. Okay. Before adding the code, let us annotate this class with @service. Let us first add the repository interface. So select com.studentapp, right click new interface. This is from repository package. The interface name is iStudentRepository. This repository should extend our JPA repository. The first parameter represents the domain model. In our case, it is student. The second parameter represents the data type of the primary key. In our case, it is integer. Import student. And also annotate this class with @repository. If you want to know more about this repository, then please watch the video where we are performing CRUD operation with the database using spring-data-jpa. We don't have to write the implementation class. The implementation class for this will be generated by Spring framework during the runtime. And all the basic CRUD operations can be performed easily. Import repository annotation. Now let us go back to student service IMPL. Here we can auto-wire student repository. Private iStudent repository. Let me do setter-based dependency injection. So go to source, generate setters alone and click generate. Above that, add @auto-wide annotation. You can also go in for field-based dependency injection. It means you can add @auto-wide above the instance variable also. Now here let us write the code. Student repository dot. The method is save. It's already available. This is from CRUD repository and pass the student object. Now let us come to the update method. Student repository dot. Here also we will be using the same method save by passing student. Okay, what is the difference between save in add student and save in update student? When you call this add student method by passing the student object, Spring framework will first check whether this object is having an ID. If the ID is not available, first it will check whether you have added generated value annotation. If it is added, it will understand that it has to auto-generate an ID. So automatically it will auto-generate an ID and create a new row in the database table. But if the ID is available in the student object, it will first go and check whether the same ID is available in the database table. If the ID is not available in the table, then it will create a new row with the given ID. If the ID is available in the table, in that case, it will update that particular row. So that is what is happening in this case. In case of update student, when you are passing a student object, it is mandatory that you need to pass the ID, and the ID should not be a new ID but it should be an existing ID. Only then updation will happen. If you are trying to pass a new ID manually, then it will create it as a new row in the database table. If you are not passing any ID and if you are having a generated value, it will generate a new row in the database table. This is how it works. Next, delete student. Student repository dot delete by ID by passing the student ID. Next, get by ID. In this case, it is student repository dot find by ID by passing the student ID, which returns an optional, and together with that you can call dot get method. We are using an optional. It can also return no value present. In that case, you have to use the methods of optional to check if it is available, return it. Later we can modify the code if you want. And in case of get all, student repository dot find all method. All these methods that we have used, save, delete by ID, find by ID, find all, they are all from CRUD repository. It means they are inbuilt methods. But in case of get by department, it is our own instance variable. So we need to write the query for this. We will do that later. First, initially we will do the setup. Now the backend is completed. We will go to the main class. The main class, implement command line runner. We are going to run this as a console based application. So we need to implement command line runner and override run method. And also let me auto where iStudent service. Here also let me add the setter method. Go to source, generate getter setters. Select only the set method, generate, annotated with @AutoWired. Now here let me create a student object. Student is equal to new student of student name, department and address. Student name Raju, department MEC, and I need to provide an address instance variable. So in the first line, let me create the address object. Address is equal to new address by passing city and state. Bangalore, Karnataka. And here I will pass the address object. Import address. Using the student service, call the add method. Pass the student object. We have done the application part. Let us add the configuration details in SRC main resources. We need to add data source specific properties. Let us add the URL, username and password. These are the data source specific properties. Here the database name is training DB. Similarly, let me add JPA specific properties. The first property talks about the dialect. We are working with MySQL, so I have given MySQL dialect. Be very careful with the spelling and the case. The second property is show-SQL. This property will show the SQL statements that are getting generated in the console. The third property is DDL auto. As of now, we have given it as create. It means when we run the application, for each and every run, the table will be dropped and created automatically. In our case, first time when we are running, we will have it as create. Once the tables are generated, when the next time when we want to run the application, we need to change this to update, or else the existing data will be gone and every time it will drop and create a new table. It is mandatory that you need to create this database before running the application. I have already created this database in MySQL command line. Now let me go to the main class. Select the main class, right click, run as Spring Boot app. Here you can see the exception. Let it be there. Let me scroll up to the top. Because we have given create, First, it will check if the tables are available. If the tables are available, then it will drop all the tables and then it will start creating the table. It has created address table, address underscore sequence, student underscore sequence and student table. In case of address, we have address ID, city and state. And in case of student, we are having student underscore ID, department, student underscore name. Whenever you are using camel case in your properties in case of Java, it will be converted into a column with an underscore. That's why we are having it as student underscore name. Then here you can see address underscore ID, which is nothing but the foreign key sitting inside the student table, and it refers to the primary key of address table. And see the name how it is given, address underscore ID. The instance variable name that you have given in the student class is address. Together with that, it has appended the address underscore ID from address class. So let us do some modifications so that it looks clear. Before that, let me scroll down. Let us see why the error has come. Invalid data access API usage exception, transient property value exception, object references an unsaved transient instance. Save the transient instance before flushing. So in our case, we are working with student and address. Now, if you see, we are trying to save only the student object. When we try to save the student object, the address object should be saved to the address table. But we have not taken any step to save the address object into the address table. That is, we have not created any repository for this address class. But this address object should be saved to the address table. For that, we will be using something called as cascade. So let me go to the student class. In the student class, we have one-to-one annotation. Inside that, let us add this cascade. What is the purpose of this cascade? When you use cascade, it has got a set of values. You can have a look. It is enum, cascade type dot all, detach, merge, persist, refresh. So first to start with, let me give it as cascade type dot all. What is the meaning of it? Student depends on address. Whenever you are trying to save the student object, first the address object should be saved to the address table. Then only the student object should be saved to the student table. This means the child reference should be saved first to the database table before saving the parent reference. In our case, address is the child reference, student is the parent reference. Student depends on address. So address object should be saved to the address table first, and then only the student object should be saved to the student table. Okay. And in case of student name, if you want to have a different column name, you can also provide that column name equal to student name. I do not want any underscore between the names. So let me save this. Before that, first let us check whether the table is generated in the database. Use training DB, show tables. All the 4 tables are generated. There will not be any values because we have got error. Now let us rerun the application. Select the application, right click, run as Spring Boot app. Now here you can see, because DDL auto is create, all the 4 tables are dropped and then it is getting generated. And in case of student, see the student name, now it has come without any underscore. And in case of the size also, you can change the size. That I have not given. Now let me scroll it down. You can see both the insert query. First address is getting inserted into address table, then student is getting inserted into student table. When the student is getting inserted into student table, the address ID also is getting inserted into the student table. Now let us check the values. Select star from address and select star from student. Okay. Now you can see the column name is address underscore ID. How to change this? Now let me go back here. We have used at one-to-one. This one-to-one annotation converts this address into address underscore ID. That is, it is mapping the name of the address underscore ID in the address class. So how to give a different name? If you want to give a different name, we have used at column annotation here. But here we are using at 1 to 1. Together with that we cannot use at column annotation. So we need to add one other annotation called as at join column. This join column, the purpose of join column is different in case of 1 to many and many to 1. But in case of 1 to 1, if you use at join column, it is used to give a different name for this particular column. Name equal to address underscore ID. Save, run the application. Now also DDL auto is create only. The table is dropped and created. Now here you can see it is, I missed a yes. So it is address underscore ID. Let me add one more yes. Save and run. Let us check in the database. Now the column name is changed to address underscore ID. Next, let us perform the other CRUD operations also. Let me go to the main class. Let me add one more student also. LNCSA. Let us call the next method student service dot get by ID by passing 2. It has to return one student object. Student equal to student service dot get by ID. Print the student. Already there is a local variable with the same name. Let me change this to n student. Before running this application, it is mandatory I need to go and change the configuration details, or else the old table will be dropped. It will create a new table and you will have only one row. So go to application.properties, change this create to update. Save, run the application. So here if you see there are no drop and create queries generated. Only the queries relevant to creating a new sequence and inserting the values is shown. And we are trying to get student by ID 2. That is printed over here. It's also printing the address together with that. Let us see the table also. Select star from student. Select star from address. Now let us call the update student method. So it is student service dot update student by passing n student. It means I need to change something of n student. Let us try to change the department of n student first. N student dot set department as mech. Save all. Now I will cut this and I will add it over here. Getting the student by ID, set the department and then call update method. Together with that, let us add one more student also, Devi. Save all. Let us run the application. Now here you can see the department for the student with student ID 2 is updated from CSE to mech. Let us check that in the database also. Select star from student. The department of Ellen is changed from CSE to mech. And one more row is also added. Select star from address. We have got 3 entries now. Now let us print all the students. So let me call the method student service dot get all, which returns a list. So we can use for each and use method reference system dot out double colon println. And this time also let me change the name. Save all. Run the application. Get all method returns all the 4 rows that are available in the database table. Let me also show you how to update the address for one particular object. We will update the same student with ID 2. For updating the address, first you need to get the address. N student dot get address, which returns an address object. Then in that address object you can call set city. Address. If you try to create a new address object, then it will be created as a new address. It will not modify the existing address. N address is equal to n student dot get address. Then n address dot set city to Hubli. Now I can call n student dot set address of n address. First get the address of the student object. Then set the property. In our case it is city. Now let me save this and run the application. Now here you can see the city of the student with student ID 2 is changed to Hubli. And I forgot to change the name for the student with ID 5. So it is printing the same name. That's okay, fine. Now the city of student with the ID 2 has been changed to Hubli. Okay, one more method is left out, that is get by department. Let us see how to do get by department. Let me go to student service IMPL. We do not have any inbuilt method. So we need to write something called as derived queries. That can be written only in student repository. In case of spring-data-jpa, the derived queries are derived from the properties of the domain model. And the derived query should start with find by, read by, or get by. So let us have it as find by. And I want to get the list of students who belong to a particular department. And the property name is department. So the derived query will look like find by department, wherein D should be capital. And automatically it will return a list of students who belong to this particular department. It means the query that will be generated for this is select star from student where department equal to question mark. And this returns a list of student. So this is called as a derived query. List student. Import list. Go to student service IMPL and call the method. Student repository dot find by department by passing the department. Now come back to the main class and comment all this. Let us call student service dot get by department by passing CSE dot for each. And here also let me change the name. Save all. Let me run the application. So it's giving me the list of students who belong to a particular department CSE. Together with that, I have got the address also. Okay. What if there is a scenario I want to get the list of students who belong to a particular city? So how will I write the derived query? So maybe in student service, let us add one more method. List of student get by city by passing string city. In student service IMPL, I need to override the method. Now we need to write the derived query for this. Go to student repository. So as I told, the method should start with find by or get by or read by. Let me use find by. And I need to pass the property that is available in student. I want to get the list of students who belong to a particular city. But if you see in student, I do not have an instance variable with the name city. But of course, I have an instance variable with the name address, which refers to address class. And in address class, I am having an instance variable with the name city. So I need to do the mapping indirectly. Now my derived query will look like find by address. This is not the class name. This is the instance variable name that I have in my student class. This name. If you have given it as ADD, then in your student repository, you need to give it as ADD. So this is the instance variable name. Find by address, which refers to a class. In address class, I am having an instance variable with the name city. So attach it. Find by address city, inside which it is string city. This also returns a list of students. Add the return type. Go to student service IMPL. Student repository dot find by address city by passing the city. Okay. Now come to the main class. We will try this also. I'll comment add student. Student service dot get by city by passing Bangalore. Let me comment this also. Save all and run the application. So now I have got the list of students who belong to the city Bangalore. This is how we perform CRUD operation for one-to-one relationships using Spring Data JPA. That's all. Thank you.